Hello once again. I'm your nuclear DM. Hey, that rhymed. Weird. Well, last time I suggested some things that could be done to remix it, or revise it, make it a little better. I think I'm not going to do that, at least for my first run through an adventure. I'll just try to explain how to run each section of the adventure instead. If I decide to do a revision or a remix, I will do it after. We're going to work on Chapter 2 today. Part 2, Phandelver, except it's not really that. It's actually Part 2, the Redbrand Hideout. Because the thing of it is, like this is the first game you've ever run, you might be looking at this and feeling a little overwhelmed at first because there's a lot of NPCs that they're mentioning, and each NPC pretty much has something that they want the PCs to do. But the thing of it is that as soon as the PCs talk to anybody, they'll probably mention that the town of Phandelver has been overrun by gangsters. And your party, which will probably feel like a group of badasses after killing King Clark in that cavern, as soon as they hear the town's overrun by gangsters, they'll immediately want to figure it out and go straight there. So you can learn all about the NPCs later, and just know that whoever the players talk to, no matter what it says in the rulebook, have them mention that the town's being overrun by a gang called the Redbrands. And the players will immediately be like, oh, there's gangs? You have a problem? We'll solve it. I feel like 90% of every party coming through this adventure will pretty much have a similar reaction to that. So, because of that, we'll skip all of Phandelver for this episode and go straight to the dungeon. Or actually, there's one thing to mention. People in town do not actually point the players in the direction of the dungeon. They actually point them to a rundown bar called the Sleeping Giant, where all the Redbrands typically hang out. And then you're supposed to run this Redbrand ruffian encounter, which will then lead the party to the actual hideout. There's real role-playing you have to do. My own advice about role-playing NPCs is don't sweat it. They're not the main characters. They don't have to give impassioned speeches unless you're into that. Either way, the Redbrands will attack the party, no matter what else happens. All of which know where the hideout is, so if the players knock at one of them out and question him, he'll probably spill his guts to them. But in any case, they'll probably get a clue. And you could probably just have one of the Redbrand ruffians just blurt something out as if they're stupid, because they're all pretty stupid anyway. Beauty of role-playing, idiots. Remember, it's not railroading if you're giving the players what they're already looking for. So the players should probably go to the Redbrand hideout after this. And there's two ways to go in, but we'll just talk about the one way, because it's the way they're most likely to go in. If they explore Phandelver a little more, they'll get information about another passageway, but it's outside of Phandelver, so they probably wouldn't find it just naturally. Moving on to the actual dungeon. It's very likely that halfway clever players will know to take the disguises of people who attack them in the streets, if there's enough. So the players might be coming in this disguised. They might be able to pass it off with enough deception rolls. Anyway, so the party more than likely is coming in through passage 1 into the cellar. And there's a lot of things to mess around here. There's the cistern, which is the fountain in the middle of the room. It's probably the most interesting part of this room. Except for the secret passage, which only people with passive perception of 15 or more can even see, and only if they're within 2 spaces from the square. Another way of saying, more than likely, your party's not going to find this door. But they might. It's still possible that they might, but more than likely, they'll just come in here and start making enough noise that the goons in Area 2 will run in and attack them. Unless they're in disguise, in which case, the party will probably have to make deception rolls against the 2 goons' passive insight, which is typically how deception rolls work. There's no monsters or anything here. There is a secret satchel filled with treasure in the cistern, which can be found with a successful perception check. It's very likely the party will find that as long as they don't alert the goons first, because once they fight, that might distract them enough they decide not to search anything else in this room. In Area 2, the barracks, is where those 3 goons are not exactly hiding. They're just kind of hanging out in here, but if they hear the party in the other room, they'll come and investigate and could possibly get a surprise attack because they sneak at them. Remember that most creatures don't want to die, so if the party does enough damage to anyone, they'll probably try to run away or try to negotiate or beg for their life or whatever. After investigating these 2 places, they'll probably find a number of things. there's some money and treasure, along with some dirty cloaks in case they're not disguised already. And then they'll probably go on to Area 3 unless they've discovered the secret passage, in which case they'll probably go into Area 8 and have to fight a Nothic. But we'll get to that. Anyway, in Area 3, the trapped hall. The pit trap isn't that hard to avoid. It's kind of hard to see. If they trigger it, they probably won't kill them because they're level 2 now. The most it does is 2d6 bludgeoning damage. So, hard to avoid, but unlikely to kill the party. If they do trigger the trap, it'll probably just be the person in front of the group. Be sure to ask about the party marching order. Might be 2 people. Sometimes they march 2 people in front. Unless your party is just 2 people, like, more than likely, they'll be able to get out easily again. I'd say most adventurers will probably have rope. So, at the very least, they'll be able to climb out again. Probably. Next, they go in the Transcendar Crypts, which has 3 skeletons in it. They're set up to just seem like normal, unanimated skeletons. They're in coffins and stuff, but then as soon as the characters try to go to the door leading to the prison, or Area 5, the slave pens, as it's called in the book, they'll jump up and attack the party. I would say this is like a fairly simple one. Skeletons are easy. Any undead are really easy. They'll just attack until they're dead. They have no fear or any reason to live because they're already dead. There are exceptions, of course, like vampires have thoughts and such. Ghouls do not, even though they can speak. At least, if they have thoughts, it's consumed by their hunger, essentially. So this is a fairly easy one, just normal combat. Skeletons can't even talk. They have no lungs. The most they can do is chatter at people, so there's not much role-playing here for the DM. Next is the slave pens, Area 5. There's 2 more Redbrand ruffians here. It says in the book that they wait to surprise the players, but, I mean, to be fair, 3 skeletons isn't that hard for level 2 characters. So I would say if you feel that the fight is too easy for the players in the last room, like maybe after they kill one of the skeletons, the 2 Redbrand ruffians will come in to be like, hey, what's going on here, and start attacking. That'll also lead characters straight into the slave pens after that, so that they can see the captives and be heroes by setting them free, pretty much. The captives themselves are a small family. The adult is a woman named Myrna, and she has 2 teenage children. And they're not that hard to roleplay. I would say that they're probably just really scared and really grateful when the heroes set them free. Next is the armory. It doesn't really have anything interesting in it. It does have some weapons that the players could just grab, but there's nothing special. The players can get more ammo here. I think getting through these rooms fairly quickly is kind of the point, in a way, just because, like, you'll notice that in order to move forward from any of these rooms beyond this is you have to find the secret door. But I think this is one of those things you should kind of just let it sit, you know, at least for a bit, until the players are like really stuck and be like, what the fuck do we do? But up until that point, let them figure it out for themselves. Don't hint at the fact that the secret doors are there. In all likelihood, they'll find the secret passageway to get to Area 7 from the hallway between Area 4 and 6. Once they realize that they're stuck, they'll start searching for secret passages right away, and that's the one that's right there, so that's probably the one they'll find. Then once they get into Area 7, they can find a bunch of beaver pelts here. That's the only thing of any interest in this room. They can take them and sell them if they want, but more than likely they won't. I wouldn't tell the party that unless they ask, that they can probably sell them. Just mention that they're there. And number 8 has a Nothic. A Nothic is absolutely out of its mind and hungers for flesh, but it's not like a ghoul. It does have intelligence, and it communicates telepathically. Whenever you're a monster, just always try to get in the mind of the monster. Always be thinking, like, what does the monster really want? Explains that what it wants mostly is just food and treasure. Those are the things that Nothics typically seek. They have this undying hunger, but they're also willing to negotiate, because they're not just mindless. This isn't like a Final Fantasy game where as soon as you meet a monster, you just cue battle music, you know? Like, most monsters in D&D are intelligence, or at least intelligent enough to communicate. Even if they're typically violent, they can, at the very least, be reasoned with to some degree. And as it explains in the book, this Nothic in particular prefers reasoning and taunting the party. Number 9 is the guard barrack. The guard barrack has 3 bugbears and a goblin. The goblin is a named goblin. His name is Droop, who will faint as soon as the party comes in the door, and the other bugbears will fight the party, unless the party's dressed and disguised as Redbrands, which they probably will be, because there's a lot of incentive up to this point for them to dress like that, but they might not be either, in which case they'll just fight off the bugbears, and then if they want to, they can question the goblin or just leave him to sleep on the floor or kill him. It's the beauty of tabletop RPGs. You never know what the party's going to do. They can do literally anything. Next room is a common room. It has 4 Redbrand ruffians playing cards who will immediately recognize the characters as imposters if they're wearing the Redbrand cloaks. The characters can still pass themselves off as new recruits with a high enough deception check. Truthfully, up to this point, the characters could probably get pretty far just being in disguised. So they can convince these people that they're part of their gang, but more than likely they'll just get into a fight. Next 2 rooms are connected. When the characters go into through 11, more than likely the rat familiar will see them and immediately warn Glassstaff, who will then flee through the secret passage and out the back, pretty much. If the characters are particularly clever, they'll try to sneak past the rat, but it's very unlikely they'll get past this rat without it alerting Yarno, who's Glassstaff. They can have him fight them. He has quite a bit of powers and stuff and could very likely kill the party if it's fast enough or they roll shitty enough. I would actually roleplay him as a coward if the party managed to catch him. Most likely they will not. Most likely Glassstaff will get away and pretty much leave this adventure. You could bring him back in some way. In fact, I would recommend that. I mean, it's good to have characters like these around, then they can always come back and cause some chaos. The party will find enough stuff doing this that will lead them down multiple paths, show them greater understanding of what's going on in the world as a whole. But it's a fun little dungeon. It's not particularly complicated, just like the other one. Anyway, I think I'll finish there and just say like and subscribe if you enjoyed that, and also I'll see you next time. And good DMing.